On 24 Jan 2023, Hindenburg published a report that created a havoc in Indian stock market.
Green energy bonds, ports bonds, and electricity bonds all dropping down.
Hindenburg published a report accusing the Indian conglomerate of engaging
concerns over valuation. The group has been investigated for misusing taxpayer funds, for corruption, for money laundering.
7 listed stocks of Adani Group went downhill, wiping over $100 billion in market cap.
It's bloodbath on Dalal Street for the Adani Group companies.
To give you a quantum of this fall, Sri Lanka's whole economy was only $84 billion.
A revelation of this magnitude has far-reaching impacts.
So what did this report contain that shook the world's third richest man, and what did he had to say about it? Before we enter the battle of Adani versus Hindenburg, let us first know who are they exactly. Because if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Gautam Adani was born on 24 Jan 1962 in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. His father Santi Lal was a small textile merchant. In 1978, with a keen interest in business, he dropped out of school. 16-year-old Gautam Adani hopped a train to Mumbai to work separately from his father's business.
The optimism and desire for independence of a teenage boy are hard to contain. All I knew was that I wanted to do something different and do it on my own.
In Mumbai, a cousin helped him get a job as a diamond assorter. A diamond assorter assesses and categorizes the diamonds according to its cut, carat, color and clarity. After learning the tricks of the trade, he started his own brokerage in diamond trading. The first commission he earned was Rs 10,000. 3 years later, he came back to Ahmedabad where his brother Mahasubh Bhai Adani had started a plastic unit. Gautam Adani started managing the operations. This venture introduced him to PVC's global trading. In 1988, Adani established Adani Exports, which is now known as Adani Enterprises. It traded in agricultural and power commodities. 1991's economic liberalization policies came at the right time. He expanded into trading of metals and textiles. In 1995, he got the contract for management of the Mundra port from Gujarat government.
This is Mundra, India's biggest multi-cargo port in action. With completely mechanized unloaders, high-speed conveyor systems, and the port's own private 70-kilometer railway line.
This is the point from where his business really took off. A year later, Adani founded Adani Power. With thermal power plants of 12,450 megawatts, it is currently the largest private thermal power producer of the country. In 1999, a 50-50 venture between Adani Enterprises and Wilmar International formed Adani Wilmar. It went on to become India's leading processor of crude palm oil and one of the country's fastest growing FMCG companies. In 2001, Adani Gas was incorporated that distributes natural gas for notable companies like ONGC, Reliance and Indian Oil. In 2016, Adani Green Energy came into picture. This company operates Kamuthi Solar Power Project, one of the largest solar photovoltaic plants in the world. Apart from these, Adani has been expanding his business verticals rapidly with notable acquisitions such as ACC Cement, Ambuja Cement and NDTV. With majority shareholdings in these companies, by 2020, Gautam Adani had amassed a net worth of $8.9 billion, which suddenly went up 5x in 2021 and 2x again in 2022. In Feb 2022, Adani became Asia's richest person, surpassing Mukesh Ambani. And by August, he became the third richest person in the world. His net worth valued over $120 billion and his company is valued over a whopping $200 billion. From a 16-year-old boy who left home with nothing in his pocket to building a business over $200 billion, Gautam Adani's journey has not been less than inspiring. This journey though has not been completely spot-free.
कैंप अडानी को रोकने के लिए है।
2014 लोकसभा चुनाव के प्रचार के दौरान जो भी पार्टियां या नेता नरेंद्र मोदी का विरोध कर रहे हैं वह अपने विरोध के हथियार के तौर पर गौतम अडानी के नाम का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं।
His business practices and growth story has been subject of controversies and allegations for a long time. But the biggest blow to him was yet to come. On 24 Jan 2023, the New York-based tiny firm with only 9 employees published a report. Publisher Hindenburg Research is founded by Nate Anderson, a chartered financial analyst. They claim to find and report companies with accounting irregularities, bad actors in management, and illegal business practices. The company also takes short position on these companies, simply meaning they bet their money on these companies' stocks going down. Thus, when these stocks actually go down, they earn profits. The operating mechanism of Hindenburg is finding dirt on a company, take short position, publish report, and earn profits. There are many other companies that operates like this, notable being J Capital and Quintessential Capital Management. These are called activist short sellers. Billionaire Bill Ackman once said, "Activist short sellers are far more efficient than regulators at unearthing corporate frauds, and that regulators should work with short sellers." Hindenburg has a noteworthy story for its naming too. In 1937, an airship named LZ-129 Hindenburg was loaded with almost 100 people to test the air flight. But in a wrong turn of events, the airship caught fire and caused death of onboard people. Hindenburg Research views this incident as a totally man-made, totally avoidable disaster. As earlier, dozens of aircraft had went up in flames, but still people boarded it. In present times, Hindenburg Research looks to report similar man-made disasters in the stock market. Hence the name Hindenburg Research. Hindenburg has reported about 30 companies since 2020, and their stocks on average has lost about 15% the next day. The most notable was the Nikola Motors, an EV company once considered as a competitor of Musk's Tesla. They pointed out that Nikola's promotional video of their running electric truck was fake. In reality, the truck was just being rolled down a hill. After the expose, Nikola's worth went down from $34 billion to $1.3 billion. Its founder Trevor Milton got convicted of defrauding the investors. Given such credibility under their belt, the market was supposed to take Hindenburg's report seriously, even if it was calling the world's third richest man a con. In its defense, Adani Group came up with a voluminous 400-page reply. But was it enough? The first area of concern Hindenburg points out is the fundamentals. Despite not much growth in earnings over the last 3 years, the increase in companies' share prices is surreal. As a result, all the Adani stocks have very high price to earnings ratio. Due to this, Hindenburg suspects 85% of downside in stock price. But how does a simple PE ratio relate to such a big fall? Here's an example. Suppose Adil bought a share of Diamond Limited at 100 rupees. He is getting happier and happier as the share price keeps multiplying 2x, 10x, 100x. He would surely get 100x return if he sells now, but he waits for the price to go up even further. A shareholder can get his investment back by only two ways. Either he sells his shares to someone else, or the company makes profits and passes it on to the shareholder. Now here's the problem with the company Diamond Limited. The company's profits has not grown like the share price did. So all this price increase has been only due to one shareholder selling it at a higher price to the next shareholder. This means that each next shareholder is paying higher price to claim the same profit. So it keeps getting costlier for the next shareholder. One day people are gonna wake up to see the trap here. The only way to make money here is if they can find the next person to buy their share. And that day, there would be literally no one to buy because the share has become so costly. On that day, a panic sell-off is going to occur, as all the shareholders will try to escape from the trap by selling the share at any price they can get. And it would result in a massive sell-off of shares and a rapid decline in prices. This is the risk that any company would be facing if their stock's PE ratio is very high. Apart from this, all the 7 listed Adani companies have very high debt to profit ratios than its peers. As per Nikkei Asia, total liabilities of 10 of Adani's listed companies add up to 3.39 trillion rupees. India's nominal GDP stood at 273 trillion rupees in October. That puts Adani's debts as a percentage of the economy at around 1.2%. So if Adani Group doesn't stand up to the expectations, the failure might shake the whole economy. Hindenburg alleges that Rajesh Adani, Gautam Adani's younger brother, and Samir Vora, brother-in-law of Gautam Adani, played a central role in planning and consultation of alleged diamond trading scam. In 2003, the DGFT, the government organization that looks after the regulation and promotion of foreign trade, it announced two new schemes, DFCE and TPS. Under DFCE, certain benefits were provided to exporters on the basis of FOB value of goods and services exported. FOB value, for simple understanding, is a valuation as per Customs Act. Under TPS, the benefits were based on incremental growth in the turnover of exports. This alleged scam was being investigated by DRI, India's top agency for anti-smuggling. DRI alleged that Adani Exports, now known as Adani Enterprises, formed a nexus with 5 Indian and 45 overseas companies. The same set of goods were rotated between these companies to artificially inflate the FOB value. Now here are some interesting arguments that DRI put forward. In 2002-3, that is a year before the schemes, Adani and its associate companies had been exporting various commodities from food grain to textiles with a turnover of just over Rs 400 crores. During the period of scheme, these companies' turnover skyrocketed. Next year, DGFT amended the notifications to remove some items, notably diamonds, from these schemes. For Adani Exports, over 80% of its export turnover had come from diamonds. So in the next year, the group barely achieved 1/3 of the previous year turnover. The further investigation and prosecution went on for more than 5 years. In 2013's ruling, Commissioner of Customs fined Adani Exports 25 crores and 2 crores each to those 5 Indian companies. Rajesh Adani was fined 1 crore and Samir Vora received a fine of 75 lakhs. But in August 2015, SESTAT, the higher authority, released all the parties and confirmed that all the transactions of diamond were valid and genuine. Also, Supreme Court of India upheld the SESTAT's decision. Hindenburg claims that Gautam Adani's elder brother Vinod Adani, along with other close associates, have set up shell companies in Mauritius, Cyprus, UAE and other OPEC countries. They claim to have found some websites of such companies. These websites have exactly same vague business descriptions. Indian law requires any publicly listed companies to have at least 25% of public shareholding. This 25% could be retail individuals or big financial institutions like mutual funds, pension funds, or big investment companies. Most importantly, this 25% should not be in control of the promoter or his family. Violation of this rule can result in the company's stock getting delisted from stock exchange. Hindenburg suspects some of Adani's public shareholders are in fact these shell companies controlled by Vinod Adani and his close associates. Over this, Adani Group replied that each of the entities referenced are public shareholders and they are not in any manner related parties of the promoters. A listed company does not have control over who buys, sells, or owns the publicly traded shares, and they cannot comment on trading pattern or behavior of these public shareholders. Hindenburg alleges that Adani has chosen a complex corporate structure that involves 7 listed companies, 578 subsidiaries, and some of which are in opaque jurisdictions like Mauritius, Panama, and the UAE. Using this complex structure, Adani Group has made a system for laundering the money in and out of the group. The mechanism for this looks like this. Offshore entities provide money to Adani Group's private companies, and then these private companies pass it on to the listed companies. For taking the money out, they follow the similar kind of structure. Hindenburg claims to have followed the money trail for many transactions. Here's one example they described. In 2021, Adani Infra gave $231 million to Adani Enterprises and $401 million to Adani Power Mundra. Records of Adani Infra showed that it received $996 million from three entities: Revar Infra, Milestone Tradelings, and Gardenia Trade and Investments. Now, first, Revar Infra's main line of business is silver bars, and its records showed it had 0 employees. Revar Infra has two shareholders owning 50% each. Coincidentally, one has been a director of a private Adani Group company and another was a former director of 3 Adani Group companies. Second company, Milestone Trading's main line of business is trading in silver and gold bars. Its registered address is the same building complex of Revar Infra in Ahmedabad. Hindenburg claims to have visited the address and they found no signs of commercial operations at this address. Third company, Gardenia Trade and Investments, is incorporated in OPEC jurisdiction Mauritius. All these 3 companies have no website and no employees on LinkedIn. So despite lack of basic signs of existence, how these entities lent so much money to Adani Group? What was the original source of their funds? Asked Hindenburg in its report. Adani Group replied that these transactions are not related party transactions under Indian laws. Consequently, they are neither aware nor required to be aware of their source of funds. Hindenburg report alleges that the auditor for Adani Enterprises and Adani Total Gas is a tiny firm with only 4 partners and 11 total employees. The audit partners were only 23 and 24 years old when they started approving financials of these $100 billion companies. They say most large companies hire credible, well-known external auditing firms to give confidence to its investors. But Adani Group has chosen tiny auditor named Shah Dhandaria and Company, who are inexperienced to deal with complexities of such big companies. Shah Dhandaria and Company became auditor of Adani Enterprise in 2018. Before that, the auditor was Dharmesh Parikh and Company. Hindenburg reports that phone number of this firm is listed as the contact number for Milestone Trade Links. Over this, Adani Group replied that all these auditors have been duly certified and qualified by the relevant statutory bodies, and all their auditors have been appointed in compliance with applicable laws. Hindenburg has had a remarkable track record, but there have been some companies that not only survived but came back stronger too. So there's no way of knowing who exactly is true here until further investigations by authorities shed light on it. Also, we can't be sure how much money did Hindenburg made with this saga. But one thing they achieved for sure is to put a question mark on Adani. And this question mark is going to be associated with many questions, with the most important one being, can Adani be trusted?